the boards of Scotland's public authorities are 35% female. I'm fine with that. Maybe more men than women are drawn to that sort of work. It's not a problem. For the feminist, of course, it's evidence of the sexist, misogynist, patriarchal society.
Prejudice and culture and patriarchy.
And the government must intervene to bias the system in favour of women and disadvantage men until we reach the perfect 50-50. In other words, they want to make the system unfair in the name of equality. And that's why currently in the Scottish Parliament there's a bill called the Gender Representation on Public Boards Bill. And we're going to watch some of the discussion behind the scenes of the Scottish Parliament in a committee. Now, obviously, this is the Scottish Parliament, so we're not really expecting viewpoint diversity, but maybe you weren't expecting it to be quite this bad.
I'd like to welcome to committee this morning Talat Yaqub, who is the chair of Women 50-50.
That's a taxpayer-funded feminist organisation with a 100% female board.
Suzanne Conlon, who is a board member of the Scottish Women's Convention.
That's a taxpayer-funded feminist organisation with a 100% female board.
Lindsay Millen, who is a policy manager of Close the Gap.
That's a taxpayer-funded feminist organisation with a 100% female board.
Our public boards represent key decisions that are being made for the good of Scotland, and that includes 51% of the population, which are women. And whilst there is only 35% women on public boards, that means there is a deficit in the decision making.
So there we have it, identity politics in action. The crucial factor is not skills, intelligence, wisdom, knowledge. The crucial factor is identity. It's to do with whether someone is a man or a woman. And if that's not 50-50, there's something wrong. There's a deficit. There's a problem to be solved.
For us, one of the reasons we think it's important is partly because that women tell us is important. Our role is very much about telling politicians and policymakers what women think.
Do you think that's important?
No.
Do you think that's important?
No.
There was already four males on it and 3 females, and we had 1 vacancy. There isn't any way that we can make sure that that board position is filled by a female, because at the end of the day, if the 2 candidates are the same, then merit is the underlying thing that's got to be the thing that appoints that person. And as long as the scrutiny's been there, a man can be appointed. So how do we achieve 50-50 representation?
Well, that's a tough problem being pointed out there, isn't it? So if 2 men are best for the job, how are you going to manage to choose a woman? That's a real problem. Now, in terms of the bill says that if a man and a woman are both equally qualified, equally suitable for the job, then the right thing to do is to choose the woman and discriminate against the man. But this MSP is saying, but that's not good enough. What about if we have the 2 men are the best candidates? So she wants a means of being able to choose the woman even if there are 2 male candidates who are better than her. And she's complaining that the merit principle prevents this from happening. Guess which party this MSP is representing in Holyrood? The Conservatives. I checked that twice on Google just to make absolutely certain I hadn't made a mistake. She is a Conservative, and she's not finished yet.
I think, obviously, there's reams of evidence that having, a gender diversity quotas bring merit to boards.
Well, that's simply not true. If you introduce any other factor into a selection process, apart from merit, apart from suitability for the job, that's going to undermine the quality of the team that's selected. And in any case, if you really believe that gender diversity enhances the decision-making process, how come that your organisation has a 100% female board? Surely if that was the case, they would come to all sorts of biased and unbalanced decisions. It would be like it is, I suppose.
In terms of merit, I suppose we would argue that where there isn't 50-50, then quotas should step in rather than merit.
Well, thanks for the honesty there. Quotas, not merit. There we have it.
So I think it's critical that we have women from different socioeconomic backgrounds, BME women, migrant women, LGBT women. I think that's critical because that is part of the diversity that makes good decisions.
Well, that's identity politics for you. Once you start, where does it stop? There just become more and more objectives, more and more oppressed groups that need to be represented, and you end up with an impossible situation trying to represent them all fairly. Right, now let's finish with a vision of the future from the Conservatives.
Would we then be looking to make sure that the male appointments on boards included LGBT, BME, protected characteristics. So
now, earlier on, she mentioned an 8-person board. So obviously we have 4 men and 4 women. Let's think about the 4 women. So she said lesbian, bisexual, transgender, black, minority ethnic. So I assume one of these 3 also needs to be minority ethnic. I suppose if one of these 3 was black as well, that would leave room just about for